Hello, this is Adam Bernard with AutoPerspectives, and it's time for a news roundup and a look at some of the more interesting stories from the auto industry over the past week or so. This past week was the Goodwood Festival of Speed, and so we got some news there. So there's quite a bit to talk about. We will start with Bentley's new electric concept. Now, Bentley has made no secret of the fact that they are working on an EV, which they have been referring to now as a luxury urban SUV. That was actually due to be on sale this year, has now been pushed out. We should see the production version next year before it goes on sale in 2027. And they have said that a new design language will accompany this new model. After unveiling an updated but still recognizable logo and opening a new design studio, we now have a look at Bentley's new aesthetic, which you see here. This is the EXP15. It is a tall, fastback, three-door coupe, which, yes, is a very unusual configuration. And you can see here on the passenger side, because this is right-hand drive, there is a rear door, but on the driver's side, there is just the one large door. So it's not unlike the former Hyundai Veloster. It has an unspecified all-wheel drive electric powertrain and as yet an incomplete interior, which exists only virtually at this point. Up front, you see a very kind of blunt front end with almost a quilted and illuminated grille and vertical, almost Cadillac-like headlamps, as well as some leather straps that are on the hood to access the frunk. Now, Bentley says that the inspiration for the EXP15 is said to come from the 1930 Speed 6 Gurney Nutting Sportsman Coupe, which you see there in the inset photo. And you can see that's also a bit of a fastback coupe. Around the rear end of the vehicle, you can see twin deployable rear spoilers just above the backlight. What Bentley calls the resting beast proportion with bulging rear haunches and an almost Dodge-like racetrack tail lamp band that runs around the rear of the vehicle. There's also a split tailgate with deployable seats and a roof-mounted hatch on the passenger side to aid entry and exit. Bentley also notes that the ultra-thin aluminum paint can actually be used over radar sensors. A lot of times automakers struggle what to do with various sensors on the outside of the vehicle. You know, they don't want them to be obtrusive, and they try to figure out how to conceal them in maybe some piano black trim, but Bentley's figured out a way now to paint over them. Now, Bentley has been very clear that this is a concept and not a direct representation of the new EV. That being said, I would not be surprised to see a lot of the elements that you see here on this concept show up on the EV that's due to hit the markets in a couple of years. I confess, I don't really see Bentley when I see this. If you didn't tell me what it was, I would have guessed it was a Rolls-Royce, mainly because of that big upright monolithic appearance. Even with the swoopy roofline, it's actually not unlike the new Rolls-Royce Spectre. When you get inside the EXP15, you have a combination of physical and digital. There is 3D printed titanium, wool, and silk jacquard trim. And has both digital and physical controls, including the traditional Bentley neural controls for the HVAC, which you can see there in the center section just forward of the armrest. This is a three-seater, so just as the outside of the vehicle is a somewhat unusual configuration, the inside is a three-seater. There is a driver's seat and a seat behind the driver, and then the passenger side is a single swiveling passenger seat, which can slide fore and aft. So all the way forward, you sit alongside the driver. All the way back, you get all the leg room in the world. And if you slide it all the way back, there's actually a dog bed that you can strap in there to carry along man's best friend. They note that the infotainment system is represented as a mechanical marvel. It's actually a clock-like device with multiple movable and illuminated fingers in the center of the dash, which can indicate the car's direction of travel, the state of its electric charge, and much more. So unlike some automakers, they are definitely not abandoning everything to the touchscreen. At the end of the day, it's hard not to compare this to what Jaguar did with the Type 00 concept. I would say that unlike Jaguar, Bentley has evolved its identity with this move to a more electrified future. I was not a fan of the Jaguar concept. I kind of like this. Again, it doesn't really say Bentley to me, but it has a sort of brutish appeal, and maybe it's a little less cartoon-like than the Jaguar. So Jaguar has indicated that the Type 00 seems very close to what the production vehicle will be that we're supposed to see by the end of the year. Bentley has been a little more cagey. So we'll have to wait until next year to see what the production version of the EXP15 actually looks like. And now for something completely different, Mazda's new CX-5. The current CX-5 is Mazda's best-selling vehicle worldwide. It has actually been around for 9 years, which is a long time, especially for a Japanese vehicle. And it was one of those things, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And as you can see, doesn't look like they really changed all that much, even though it is all new sheet metal, all new inside as well. And yes, it is still called the CX-5, even as Mazda has gone to a new naming strategy for everything else: CX-30, CX-50, CX-60, CX-70, etc. This is still just the CX-5. And again, it is their best-selling vehicle, so they wanted to keep that familiar name. Under the hood is a little uninspiring. It is a carryover 187 horsepower engine from the current CX-5. It does not have a turbo. It does not have cylinder deactivation. It has no kind of electrification whatsoever. And it is coupled to an old, reliable 6-speed automatic. So very, very proven, but kind of old school technology. The new vehicle is about 4.5 inches longer on a 3-inch longer wheelbase, about a 1/2 inch wider, so you get a lot more space for people and cargo. That actually puts it right on top of the Mazda CX-50. Mazda has assured people that there is room in their showroom for both the CX-5 and the CX-50. The CX-5 is more urban sophisticate, and the CX-50 is more rugged-ish, at least rugged for a Mazda. The overall design, of course, is very evolutionary. You would probably be hard-pressed to spot this as a new vehicle if you didn't see it side by side with the old vehicle. And this new updated Kodo design language is intended to be carried over to other future Mazdas. Inside, it's probably more of a revolutionary than an evolutionary change. If you've been inside a Mazda lately, they almost all have a touchscreen and not a touchscreen, a forward-mounted screen and a rotary controller. They're one of the last automakers to not do a touchscreen because they felt that was not appropriate for a driver-oriented vehicle. Well, apparently that research has been tossed out the window, and now we have a giant 15.6-inch touchscreen with Android-based infotainment and a Google Gemini AI onboard assistant. So they've gone to what many other automakers are doing currently. There are no physical buttons on the dashboard, not even a volume knob, which is rather unfortunate. We've seen other automakers like Ferrari and Volkswagen and Hyundai claim that customers still want physical controls, and Mazda has said that their research says yes and no. They claim that the customer feedback combined with the use of voice command and steering wheel physical controls is intended to offset the lack of physical buttons on the dashboard itself. The early reactions on some of the forums seem to suggest otherwise, so we'll have to wait and see when the media gets to drive this vehicle. Now, I did mention that the carryover engine does not have any electrification, but Mazda did save the best surprise for last. There will be a CX-5 hybrid launching in 2027, and unlike the CX-50 that uses a Toyota-based system, Mazda's system will be using an internally developed setup. Some of the drivers who've been behind the wheel of a CX-50 hybrid claim that it's a little uninspiring to drive, and Mazda feels that they can do that job better if they develop the system on their own. So it will not be a Toyota system, but a Mazda system. And we'll go from Japan to the rest of the world, starting with France with the Renault Boreal, as in the Aurora Borealis. In the past, Renault has taken products from Dacia, slapped a Renault badge, and sold them in various markets where the Renault brand is stronger than the Dacia brand. And the Boreal started life as a Dacia Bigster, but instead of slapping a badge on it, Renault has actually done quite a bit more to this vehicle. All the sheet metal that you see is new. A lot of the interior is new as well, and it's positioned more upmarket than the Bigster. It gets a 2-tone roof, aluminum skid plates, a panoramic sunroof, and roof bars, as well as some nice substantial 19-inch wheels. Under the hood of the Boreal is a 1.3-liter turbo with a 6-speed dual-clutch transmission, so surprisingly, no stick shift available. The inside is also quite a bit changed from the Bigster. You get a new instrument panel with 10-inch digital IP cluster and a 10-inch touchscreen. The interior colors are either blue or light gray, which is a nice change from the usual black on black on black. There's 48 color ambient lighting and even laser engraved accents. There's a 10-speaker Harman Kardon audio, and the new Boreal will be built in Brazil and Turkey for South America, Turkey, Middle Eastern markets, Mediterranean countries, and South Korea. And sales will start later this year. And finally, we will end with something very fast, the Hyundai Ioniq 6N. N is for Nürburgring. And a few years back, Hyundai poached the head of BMW's M Group and said, we'd like you to do for Hyundai what you did for BMW, which is, in this case, take the letter N and make it stand for the ultimate in performance. And they've started with internal combustion vehicles and have now started applying the N to electric vehicles as well. So the Ioniq 6N takes the 84 kilowatt hour battery and the 641 horsepower drivetrain from the Ioniq 5N, which gets you from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.2 seconds. That's actually 0.2 seconds quicker than the 5N. Now, the 6N has not been a great seller for Hyundai. It's selling at about 1/3 the rate of the 5N. And the Hyundai folks have acknowledged that, it was really tough to put a business case together to do a performance version of a vehicle that wasn't exactly flying out of the showroom. The head of their performance development tech unit, who's an ex-Porsche engineer, has said the company is aware of the Ioniq 6's limited sales, but that the purpose of the Ioniq 6N is not to be a bestseller, but to be a halo vehicle. And to that end, they've taken all the goodies that we've seen in the Ioniq 5N and just cranked it up a little more. They've updated the simulated shift technology, battery management hardware, and even the powertrain audio technology, and added a couple of new features as well. The N ambient shift light actually is a lighting feature inside that visually cues the driver when to shift. So rather than just a little, warning light on the screen, the ambient lighting actually changes when it's time to upshift. And then second is the new N Drift Optimizer, which offers control over the vehicle's drift characteristics with customizable parameters for drift initiation, angle, and wheel spin. So if you do like to drift, you can do it even more easily with this particular vehicle. And that about wraps up the news for this week. So quite a bit to digest. If you like what you see and hear, please subscribe and share, and visit AutoPerspectives.net for more information. We'll be back next week with an update on what's new and interesting in this business.